Elden Ring's new DLC was just released, and with it came many new bosses to whip us into shape. I ranked the top 10 hardest bosses in Elden Ring based on my own experience, and today I'll be doing the same for Shadow of the Erdtree. Remember, this is my own personal ranking, but I'd love to hear if you agree down below. The number 10 spot is the Shadow Tree Avatar. This sunflower-shaped boss was both exciting and hard because of its 3 phases. The Land of Shadow incantation you can purchase from its remembrance states that it originates from the Shadow Tree avatars, plural. This could mean that instead of one boss with 3 phases, we're actually fighting 3 separate avatars back to back. Luckily, I had a lot of fire damage that made quick work of all of them. It was an interesting battle, and one of the rewards for defeating it was super shocking, but it wasn't overall that difficult, so it landed at the bottom of this list. Number 9 is Midra, the Mother of Fingers. This is an optional boss found at the end of Count Ymir's questline. It's an amalgamation of fingers, with the bottom of its body acting as a large finger creep, trampling and attempting to crush you, and its top half acts as a head and what I can only presume is a tail. The Mother of Fingers also performs finger sorcery, blasting the room with purple lasers and fleeting microcosms. This was probably the creepiest out of all of the bosses, but it was such an interesting surprise to find at the end of Count Ymir's questline. And in my opinion, it was about time we fought a finger-related boss. Number 8 is the Putrescent Knight, which we fight at the final stages in St.Trina's questline. This is another optional boss. The horse and the knight can actually either attack together or separately, which made the fight much more complicated than the last 3. The Putrescent Knight also does this twirling guillotine move that could take me out in a single pass, so it took more than a few tries to take him down. The Ollier is an optional summon for the fight, but his poison doesn't do as much damage as I hoped it would. Number 7 is Midra, the Lord of the Frenzied Flame. Midra was another optional boss found in the Abyssal Woods. The whole area is fascinating because it's hidden inside of a catacomb. Everything leading up to this boss fight was so creepy, but at the same time, oh so interesting. Midra's first phase is a nothing burger because he's just a man, but once his second phase commences, he becomes the Lord of the Frenzied Flame. There was something very haunting and elegant about this boss fight. The way he twirls and moves like a dancer was almost hypnotic. The fight wasn't exactly difficult, but there's one nuke move that he did that was really hard to dodge, which is why he landed here at the number 7 spot. Number 6 is Needle Knight Lita and her allies. This is a gladiator-style battle royale, which breaks out just before the final boss fight. And depending on your interactions with the NPCs throughout the game, the fight can include just about every single NPC in the game. The sheer amount of enemies in this arena, as well as the staggering entrances of both them and your summons, made this fight hectic, as well as difficult. My palms were definitely sweaty after this one. This fight also shocked and blindsided me. I thought I'd made friends with everyone, only to be turned on right at the end. It was a sort of double whammy. Number 5 is Rana, the Twin Moon Knight. This might have been my favorite boss between the music, the design of her character, the design of her battle, and all of her lore connections, but she was also one of the harder bosses in the DLC. I accidentally found her before any other bosses, and before I'd collected more than a few Shadow Tree fragments, so it only made it that much harder. The fight with Rana was probably the most jarring, since it was the first example of the difficulty jump between the base game and the DLC. It took me quite some time before I was able to get past her. Number 4 is the hidden child of Marika himself, Mesmer the Impaler. I'll admit, Mesmer is definitely related to Malenia. He has this impaling move that's identical to Malenia's, and it basically kills you in a single hit. The first half of his battle, Mesmer tries to take you out immediately, requiring a swift and well-timed dodge right out of the gate. But it was mostly Mesmer's second phase that was the harder part for me personally. The arena is so small and it's so hard to dodge his attacks. Having said that, I love both of his cutscenes and thought the voice acting was really well done. We were luckily spared from watching him yank out his own eye, but it was a brutal scene nonetheless. It took me more than a few tries to finally defeat him. Hearing him curse his mother, Queen Marika, in his final moments left me feeling sad more so than victorious. Number 3 is none other than Bale. Bale's boss battle was a frustrating yet entertaining fight for me. Egon's voice lines were the only consolation for having my ass handed to me over and over and over again. This wasn't the only frustrating dragon fight in the DLC, but it was by leaps and bounds the hardest. I started his fight rather early in my playthrough and ended up having to come back to it much later. Once I finally defeated the old dread, I felt extremely accomplished and was so happy to know that Egon's soul could finally be at rest.
Bale the Dread! You shall haunt me no longer!
Number 2 on the list is Commander Gaius. I'll be honest, I hated this boss fight. It's completely optional and brutally unfair. His mount's moves were extremely hard to dodge, his attack pattern was all over the place, and even though you could ride Torrent during his boss fight, it would only make him more aggressive towards you, giving you next to no breathing room to heal or to even maneuver. There seemed to be a sort of glitch that would happen when trying to summon a spirit in his boss room. You'd pass the Gate of Fog, try to summon a Spirit Ash, and the animation for not being able to would happen instead. This would give Commander Gaius just enough time to ram you into the wall, make it impossible for you to roll or get up, and then you just immediately die. The camera would also sometimes get stuck inside of the boar. I could see its eyes hanging in the air, which was extremely disturbing, but also gave me major motion sickness. A quick note that I wanted to add is that they patched out a huge problem with this fight, where Commander Gaius was starting only a few feet in front of the entrance, giving you barely any time to do literally anything. I watched a friend play recently and noticed that he would start from the back of the arena, and I felt so incredibly cheated because I had to fight him before this. This was by far my least favorite boss, not just in the DLC, but also in the base game. When we learned that he was an Albinauric, that just made me even more upset, considering how much I love the Albinaurics and Latenna's questline. I'm just glad I don't ever have to fight him again. The honorable mention for this list is the Black Jail Knight, found in the first nameless mausoleum in the Gravesite Plains. This optional boss actually kind of became a meme in the community because of how ridiculously hard he is. And he was hard. I lost a lot of runes to this boss and cursed at the screen one too many times out of frustration. If you had an easy time with this boss, I'd love to know in the comments down below, and include what kind of build you used when you defeated him. And at the number 1 hardest boss spot is the final boss himself, the consort of Miquella, Radahn. By far, this is the hardest boss in the DLC, especially during that second phase. With Miquella on his back, Radahn attacked relentlessly. Every time he took off into the sky with that meteor strike, I'd run screaming in the opposite direction. It took me almost 3 days, countless hours, and even when I finally did defeat him, We both took each other out at the same time. I wasn't even sure I'd done it until the screen reloaded. I respect twice. I tried multiple different strategies, shields, armor, you name it. When I finally did defeat him, I used a combination of Dragon Communion Rot and Bloodflies. I wanted to summon both the Ollier and Sir Ansbach, but eventually realized that the Ollier was making the fight so much harder, and once again, not doing nearly enough damage. With Sir Ansbach and my Mimic by my side, we finally took down the newly resurrected radahn, putting him in the ground a second time. And that's it. Do you agree with my list? Why or why not? Thank you so much for watching my video. If you liked it, please don't forget to hit the thumbs up down below. Let me know who were the hardest bosses for you. As always, I can't wait to talk to you all in the next one. Bye!